Hi there, today I want to talk to you about the US words in Esperanto. Most of those are conditional verbs, all right? They are the kind you'd use in an if-then statement. If this were true, then this would be true. If you wanted to do that, you would do this. You see what I'm saying? Technically, those are called conditionals. I, however, like the phrase iffies. They're words that have, phrases that have if in them. So if you're feeling iffy on your iffies, then perhaps this video can help you out. So let's take a look here at how we would form such a sentence. Se is our word for if. So if I wanted to say a phrase like, if I read the Bible, I'm a good Christian. There's a couple ways that you could phrase that. And by the way, we can discuss the theological soundness of such a phrase later, but that's not important right now. Se mi legas la Biblion, mi estas bona Kristano. If I am reading the Bible, then I am being a good Christian. That's what that's saying. But if you wanted to word it a bit more hypothetically, you could say, Se mi legus la Biblion, mi estus bona Kristano. If I were to read the Bible, I would be a good Christian. You see the difference there? One is saying that, yes, this is happening, and so if this is happening, then that other thing is happening. You could also say, se mi legos la Biblion, mi estos bona Kristano. If I do read it in the future, then I will be a good Christian in the future. Whereas this is much more open-minded and just sort of discussive. Were this to happen, this would happen, okay? Semi cantus mi bruus. If I were to sing, I would make a noise. Notice brui creates bruus, which means there's two U's next to each other. That's something I don't think I've ever seen in English, but you don't condense those or omit the sound of one of them. You have to sound out both of them. So it has to be bruus. You can't just say Bruce, okay? So be aware of that. If I were to sing, I would make noise. That is the if statement. So the conditional is just all up in the air, thinking about it. Not saying it's happening, not saying it did happen, not saying it will happen. I'm saying if it would have happened, if it happened right now, or if it happened in the future, this is what would or would have or will happen, if that makes sense. The word for unless does not exist because there's not a one-word version of that. Instead, you'd use the little phrase krom se. Okay, this threw me off for a while. I remember trying to look up the word unless in a dictionary. I was like, well, isn't there a word for that? I mean, that's a pretty standard word. Well, here, you have to reword it a little in your brain when you use it, because krom se literally means except if. So the example is, mi soifos krom se mi trinkos. I will thirst unless, or except if, I drink. All right? Now, you've probably heard of the understood you. If I said, eat something, I'm clearly saying you eat something, right? You understand who I'm talking to because of the way I'm directing the sentence and because of the verb form, eat. I wouldn't say eats. That doesn't make sense because that's not the right conjugation, right? So in Esperanto, we are often going to be using the understood if as well, especially with these US verbs, because it implies there's an if phrase floating around somewhere inside there. Here's some examples. Mi accetus tion, sed mi ne havas la monon. I would buy that, but I do not have the money. So the beginning of this is a conditional. I theoretically would buy that, but I do not, in actual reality, have the money. But if you look deeper, you look sort of between the lines, you can tell that there is an understood if phrase in there. I would buy the money if I were to have or I would buy that if I were to have the money, right? Or if I had the time to buy it or something like that, if I was able to get to the store before it closed. There's some if statement that's implied, right? But let me bring you back to reality. Here's the real life fact of why I can't do it. Another example here. Mi dungus vin, I would hire you. And if you heard that, you'd say, okay, that's weird to say you would hire me. Okay, so why aren't you? If what were true, like if what? Se kiel. No, se vi estus pli juna. If you were younger, if you were more young. Oh, I see how it is. I'm too old, huh? You want to hire some younger person to come up through the ranks. All right, I see. But you can tell because of the US verb here, that implies there's an if conditional clause somewhere lurking about. Now, before we get any further, I want to point out a few other words that happen to have a US ending, but they have nothing to do with what we're talking about with conditionals and whatnot. So, jus, I talk about that more in a separate video where I discuss the difference between justa, juste, simple, nur, and jus, okay? That I think I call that video the Justice League in Esperanto because it's all the different forms of the English word just could be made into if you translated them into Esperanto. So, jus you can learn more about in that video. Plus and minus, fortunately, work just like they do in English. Unu plus unu estas du. Du minus unu estas unu. I could see someone maybe accidentally going, oh, well, if plus is plus, and they didn't see minus next to it, they might go, oh, the opposite of that would probably be, mal plus, right? And that would be minus. No, don't get ahead of yourself. Don't get too creative there. We're already allowed to use minus, so let's just do it. You can also use it descriptively, such as right here. Estas minus 30 gradoj extere. It is minus 30 degrees outside. All right? But unless you're looking at one of those words, the chances are the US Esperanto word you're looking at is a conditional verb. All right? So let's look at a few more of them. Se mi malsatus, mi manjus. If I were hungry, I would eat. Now, here's the unique thing about the conditional tense. It exists outside of time, kind of like the nexus in Star Trek Generations, or the Q continuum in Star Trek The Next Generation, or the Guardian of Forever from Star Trek The Original Series. I should probably get out more, watch football at some point, but bear with me here. So it exists outside of time. If I were hungry today, I would eat. If I were hungry yesterday, I would have eaten. If I were hungry a week from now, I would eat at that time. This phrase can mean all of those. So if you want to anchor your phrase to some specific point in time, if it really matters, that, oh, I'm talking about last week, if I had done this, I would have done this. I want to make that clear and not have there be other potential meanings. Then you have to use other words to tether or anchor yourself to that point in time. For example, se mi malsatus hieraŭ, mi tiam manjus. If I were hungry yesterday, I, at that point, at that time, would have eaten. See the difference there? Had to use the yesterday thing. Or here's another, we can change the form of it. Instead of saying malsatus, we could say estus malsatinta. If I had been a person who was hungry, I would have been a person who was eating. Okay? It's funky in English, but that's how you could do it. Or simpler form of that would be semi malsatintus mi mangintus. If I had been a person who was hungry, I would have been a person who was eating. Okay? So that's how you anchor it there. But if you just leave it in the standard form, it could apply to other things. Now, it's very common to just leave it like this, and a lot of times it doesn't matter if there's a chance that it could be interpreted as being in the past. Most of the time, you just use the standard thing, and it's understood that if you're talking about, oh, if I did this, I would do this. Well, you're not a time traveler, so the odds of you going back in time and changing things is low. You're talking about either right now, or the immediate future, or in the distant future. So most of the time, it's sort of future leaning, but I just want to give you the tools in case you need to word something very specifically. But the point here is us words exist outside of time. You literally have to give it time through other words, all right? Tempus fugit, right? That's a little Latin for you, actually. That's not Esperanto. Don't end up using these in the wrong way here. So tempus fugit means time flies, okay? Theoretically speaking. So one thing that you'll find when using this US ending and these conditional verbs is that it can be a little confusing. We use all sorts of different phrases and modals and helping verbs to achieve the idea of in theory-ness. We could say, oh, if you were to do this, then I would have done this. Now, I would have done this had you done this. You know, had, were to, would have, all those little things. And those words in English can confuse you sometimes because had can mean I have this object. not, oh, I have been dancing. Well, I don't have dancing, right? So, but you see where there's confusion. So one thing that I do personally that I just started doing that cleared things up for me in reading Esperanto is whenever I see a US word, I shove the word theoretically in front of it just to help my brain make sure it's on the right path. Otherwise, you could get in some trouble. For example, right here, mi povus se li demandus. I could if he asked. I theoretically could if he theoretically were to ask me. See, that is a very different statement than mi povos morgau. I could tomorrow. You see, I could and I could sound pretty similar in English, and you could mix them up if you're just sort of reading them and you wouldn't understand that, oh, one of those is theory sort of based thing, sort of ethereal, technically a phenomenon crunch with ethereal, but theoretical. A theoretical phrase is different than a real phrase that's happening in the actual world right there. So make sure to use that if it helps you or if you're getting stuck. Another example here would be se li havis gin li mortis. Let's say we're talking about a disease or something like that, like a zombie virus. We could say, if he had it, he died, right? Or he is dead. Or we could say, if he had it, he would die. Now, in both cases, even though the beginnings, are different here, it would sound the same in English. If he had it, if he had it. But on the bottom one, I'm saying if he theoretically had it, he theoretically would be dead. I could be talking about one of the zombie survivor people could theoretically have it, and then he would theoretically die in the future. Whereas this can only refer to the past. I'm saying, oh yes, my wife, she got the disease, but maybe she's okay now. Maybe she's gotten better. Oh no, buddy. If he had it, if she had it, then she would be dead. Right? That's different than this because this can exist in a different time frame and talk about a future death. Okay? The point being, shove the word theoretically in front of it, and it'll help you from making some accidental flubs, okay? Now, this next word is one that I didn't know when I went to my first Esperanto convention meetup thing. And I remember for a few days going, I don't know how to express the idea of suggesting something. I don't know how to, I can tell you to do, like, eat something. I can say that, manju. I can say that, and I can say that you are eating something, but I can't suggest, like, hey, you should go eat some food, okay? You're getting a little hangry, okay? I can't express that thought. Why is that? That's because the word for should or to ought to do something is sort of buried inside of another verb. And that's a little odd, but it's the way we do things. So let me introduce you to that verb in case you're not familiar with it. It is devi. Devi is literally a must-know verb because it is to must, okay? To must or to have to blank. Mi devas iri means I must go. Mi devis iri is I had to go. I had the duty of going in the past. Mi devos iri is I will have to go. Mi devus iri. Now, you'd think that would mean I theoretically have to go, right? I theoretically must go, but it actually means I should go. That's our way of saying you ought to do something, is vi devus blank, right? You should blank. Wait, what? Yes, that's it. So when I figured that out, I was like, oh, now I can actually tell people what to do and be passive-aggressive in my suggestion making. Like, maybe it was a good thing that I couldn't do that before, but it opened the floodgates, right? You might be a little confused, though, because what if I had to say, oh, I theoretically must do this. Like, if I had to wear a uniform to school, I would kill myself. That's not saying if I should wear a uniform to school. No, I'm saying if I was required to, then I would do this. What if you need to make that distinction? Well, there's some ways. Mostly, you would want to use just context, and that'll make it clear. For example, se mi nepre devus iri, mi estus malfelice. If I nepre means definitely, absolutely, necessarily. If I really, truly needed to, devus, needed to go, I would be unhappy. So, because we have se, which is if, in there, I'm saying that this is a conditional phrase, all right? And there's a good chance that, oh, over here, yep, another conditional verb. So if you see this happening where, okay, devus is in a se clause, there's a good chance that it might not mean should, even though most of the time we use it for should because should is such a common thing. It might, in that case, be, oh, you're talking about a duty or, a devo, which is duty, right? So if you see that in there, and nepre, I shoved that in there just to further make sure that it is clear that this isn't just, I should go, but I won't. No, I was required to. I absolutely, necessarily had to go, okay? So you can use that, and context is key there. Whereas here, just saying, mi devus iri, do mi iros. I should go, so I will go. You see the difference? There's no reason to think that I theoretically must go, so right? No se in there anywhere. So use that to your advantage. Now, what if, in using the word should, I wanted to say, well, I should have done something in the past. Ooh, normally we would just use the past tense form of a verb, but devus isn't like other verbs because it's one form of another verb that it's sort of borrowing from something else. So I could say mi manjas, mi manjis, mi manjos, I am eating, I was eating, I will be eating. But if you have to specify that I should have done something in the past, you would do one of these two things here. You would say mi devintus iri, which means I should have gone. That adds the past tenseness in there, that participle form of it, the int. Mi devintus iri. Or you could say, mi estus devinta iri. I was a person who was, I would be, just believe me, that's the way you do it. You can say mi devintus or mi estus devinta, and then the verb, and that'll say, oh, I should have blanked, all right? There are a few other sort of oddball things. I know with volus and povus, things are treated a little bit differently. If you look on Pomo Ego and some other websites, you can find more details about that. But I think if you understand everything that I've just told you, you'll be good for most of your interactions and most of the times you run across these words in your reading and writing and speaking and listening, okay? So stay tuned for more videos maybe down the line where I get into the nitty-gritty, but get out there and start practicing. Thank you for watching and have a wonderful day.